need to borrow and in fact transform some of the principles or tenets of green design from the building question, buildings and the physicality of buildings, to the larger domain of infrastructure, I think is an emergent direction that brings together architects, scientists, engineers, with landscape architects on this larger question of how do we harmonize natural resources with the built environment. And I think that what's exciting about this movement towards greening our infrastructure, and I don't mean green infrastructure, which is really a term for the ecological services that trees and planted areas provide. The green infrastructure is, the distinction is that taking our current mechanisms for treating, filtering water, creating energy and mobility among our citizens, we have to rethink some very basic questions. And I think there are 4 premises that I'm interested in addressing. The first is, as we think of infrastructures, can we begin to think of them not as sort of separate components that are unrelated, but that when we build one, we're building one that has multiple functions and becomes, we try to integrate and not segregate those infrastructures for concerns of resource efficiency, labor efficiency, and so on. And I can think of some examples of a wonderful project that may or may not be built in the city of, in Canary Islands, which is a solar desalination plant comprised of solar panels that forms the backdrop for a civic amphitheater. That's an example of multi-use. I can think of many others. The second condition really is to move towards a low or no carbon infrastructure by harnessing natural forces, processes wherever possible. The third dimension really addresses, in our building of infrastructure, can we create components that work well with the community in which they're housed, whereby there's a give and take, and we can literally beneficially embed the infrastructure in that locale. Another dimension is, I'm going to have to hesitate here for a second. Another dimension is to address climate and climate change. And how do we build infrastructures that are resilient, is a good word, adaptive, and that can withstand some of the stresses, anticipate and withstand some of the stresses of climate change. In our transportation systems, we have to think about where we build them in relation to rising sea levels, etc. So another component, of course, in infrastructure design is to take advantage of natural processes and to think of new ways of, for example, harnessing solar energy in the city. Can we design buildings in such a way as to capture and utilize passive energy, and what are the implications of that in terms of planning guidelines, is one example. We're developing new technologies where, such as a heliostat, which receives solar energy and reflects it somewhere else. And can we begin to develop mechanisms in cities where solar energy or light illumination can be harvested for beneficial use somewhere else where it's not receiving it. So those are a couple of other examples.